Okay, a couple of the events that are coming up that are on your program, it's on the agenda, but I do want to mention them. On October 4th, from noon to 1 here in the library, there's going to be a program called Noon Break, and it's with author Mike Tolbert and former Mayor Jake Godbold. Who knows Jake Godbold? Good, okay, generational, but so you need to come and learn really what the influence and the importance that Mayor Godbold had in the city as an elected official, and what he did to really put us on the map. So Mike Tolbert's going to discuss his new biography, Jake, which does describe Jake Godbold's rise from his boyhood in public housing to become a Jacksonville City Councilman as well as mayor, and the political powerhouse that he was that transformed the city of Jacksonville. Beaches Watch is also co-hosting with Common Grounds, which is a group that was started in the Palms Presbyterian Church. They are doing community conversations on issues that are really important to us, that are timely. And this is an open forum, so we're really encouraging everyone to please sign up and participate. The deliberative dialogue that they're hosting is how do we address mental illness in our community? And as you know, that is a nationwide epidemic, and it touches all of us just here locally. So that's being held on Thursday, October 10th from 6 to 8:30. A light dinner will be provided. It's going to be at the Palms Presbyterian Church. You need to register. You can go to their Facebook page, actually, and register. So that's Palms Presbyterian Church Facebook. Also, we are now accepting nominations for our 2019 Give Back Award. This is our 10th annual award. So if you want to recommend or nominate a nonprofit, it has to be a nonprofit organization that has enriched the quality of life for us here at the beach. And our upcoming Beaches Watch meeting will be Wednesday, November 2nd. It will be also here at the library. And it's going to cover the coastal vulnerability assessment that was recently completed by Atlantic Beach. So this isn't just about Atlantic Beach, this is about all of us here in the beaches area. And speaking of Atlantic Beach, I do want to do a quick shout out. Atlantic Beach has become the first Florida city and among the first in the United States to be certified using the Leadership, Energy, and Environmental Design, or LEED for short, for cities rating system pilot, their pilot program. This certification is being recognized both statewide and nationally. The case study can be found on the City of Atlantic Beach's website under their Planning Community Development. And I just brought a copy here for those who are interested to maybe take a look at it, but you can see the digital copy online. It's also uploaded to the UNF Digital Commons, so you can also access it there. But this is a big deal. This is something that really Atlantic Beach took the leadership on, and they worked really hard. They had a lot of partners in this, and it just goes to show that we need these progressive thinking leaders. We need leaders that are really here to help put in place things that are going to help protect us and things that are going to help us to be better environmental stewards, because it's all about us anyway and where we live. So if you take a moment to look that up, it's really great, and congratulations to Atlantic Beach for being a leader in that effort. Okay, so let me see how I did on time. 7:08, okay. So without further ado, I want to introduce Rory Diamond. Rory is not only our representative for the City of Jacksonville, but he's also the Executive Director for Canines for Warriors, and hopefully you all know all the great work that he and his organization have been doing for our veterans, and we applaud him for that as well. Thank you. I want Rory to go ahead and give his presentations and give you all these updates, and then we will have time afterwards for Q&A. So if you can hold your questions until then, that would be great.
All right, can everybody hear me? Okay, good. All right, so first of all, it's awesome to be in front of Beaches Watch. I think it was maybe 4 years ago, I was the Vice President of Beaches Watch. Every single one of my colleagues who wants to go out into their district has to rent a hall, do all the advertising, do all the work to have a forum just like this, and we are lucky to have Beaches Watch where I know your team worked hard to make all this happen, but I really appreciate it. It does essential work. There's literally no other Beaches Watch in any other district, so we're really lucky to have it. And thank you for all the work and having me. I appreciate it. I know Mackenzie appreciates it too, because I would make her do all the work anyways. I've got a presentation. I do want to recognize a couple other elected officials in the room. We have former Atlantic Beach Commissioner John Stinson in the back. There's former Jax Beach City Councilwoman Janelle Wilson. And then we have two county commissioners from around here. Here's Gavin Rollins from Clay County Commission and Jeremiah Blocker from St. John's County Commission. We can give them a round of applause. And throughout this presentation, there's a couple of City of Jacksonville folks who are in the room who do really important things for us that I would like to recognize. But anyways, I'm your district city council person. Let's keep going. That's a picture of me looking sideways, probably from the same skin. And in black and white, it's the only one that makes me look. This is like who I am. I was a lawyer, and now I run Canines for Warriors. And I'm super honored to have two hats, which I absolutely love. And I guarantee you, they're both full-time jobs. One running Canines for Warriors, and the other one being your voice downtown. Don't try and read this, please. I'll just say, I take this job of representing you downtown really seriously. And I used to love coming here, Bill Gulliver, come and do this, because one, you would learn a ton, and you get insights, and two, you would laugh. And if I could do 10% of what Bill Gulliver does in this room, and maybe 20% of what he did downtown, we're all going to be in good shape. And helping him along the way, of course, is Miss Carol, helping and serving our beach city. So give her a round of applause. She's having a day. Here's our district. If you don't know, we're the Beaches District. And it starts in Mayport, and we'll talk about Mayport today, all the way down to the Ponte line, where my friend Jeremiah Blocker on the St. John's County Commission takes over. That's why he's here. We do a lot of beach stuff together. Everybody thinks the Beaches District is only the beaches, but it's not. We have this section of Intercoastal West. And so we have friends here like Judge Ron Swanson, who lives in, where are you at? There's the judge, who's new on the Charter Commission, who live in Isle of Palms, and all the issues over here, if you don't know, are about dredging. So that's all they care about, and that's all I'm working on over and over again about dredging. All right, let's keep going. That's the district. All right, here's the stuff that I've been appointed to. So when you get appointed, where you get elected and you go on the city council, the council president gets to put you in places. And there's 19 of us. And typically, as a brand new person, you don't get into leadership. You just kind of get thrown into the worst stuff. And we did not get treated like that out here at the beaches. I actually got pretty lucky. So I'm on the neighborhoods committee. This one deals with, it's like the other committee. Everything you can possibly imagine goes into neighborhoods. Most importantly, I'm the vice chair of rules, the number 2 person on rules. Almost everything goes to rules. Every appointment, every change to how we do anything. If JEA ever gets sold or that ever comes up, it's going to go through rules. It's the most important committee, in my opinion, more important than finance. And from this perch, I get to see a lot. Also, I was appointed floor leader. I'll tell you about that in a second. I serve on the Northeast Florida Regional Council, and then I'm the Military Veterans Affairs Liaison for the Jacksonville City Council for obvious reasons. I'm going to all these meetings anyways because of my day job, so they let me wear both hats. Keep on going. All right, I'm your floor leader. What that means is it's kind of like the number 3 position of leadership on our 19-person city council. And it means I'm essentially running the meeting with our city council president, and his name is Scott Wilson, and we will both serve in this position for a year. The reason why this is important is that I'm standing there and I make every motion. I move every vote and have a say and get in the queue for anything that's happening. And this is just a really nice position to be able to assert our interests. And I'll tell you a few times where this is really, really helpful. We want to keep on going. Oh, Carla. This is your slide. This is your slide. All right, so I'm going to go through about 10 issues that I'm working on your behalf, either as a community or on behalf of the city as a whole. I'm a former federal prosecutor. Years ago, I literally put our elected officials in the community I was in a grand jury room and asked them questions about the lies that they told or the money that they stole. It drives me nuts when people are dishonest with public office. It just bothers me. And I will tell you this, and I'll be entirely honest with you. I think the law here in Jacksonville is not good enough. I don't think it's close to good enough. I think what's legal here is illegal in many other places, and we ought to change it. If I proposed all those things tomorrow, they would all fail. So we're going to start small. I'm working with Carla Miller, there she is, stand up, what you do is important, our ethics officer for the city of Jacksonville. She's here in her personal capacity. She's doing the hard work of keeping our city government honest. And it's hard work, I guarantee you. And what my job is going to be is to review our ethics and conflict laws, our transparency laws, and make sure that we can make improvements. And I'll start introducing those starting next year. You're not going to see huge, big sweeping changes. You're going to see small stuff first. And as we get used to talking about transparency and conflicts and insider dealing, you're going to see more and more serious stuff coming out, because I think we can clean up our city government. I think we can do better. And I know Carla is excited about that. I'm excited for it. Let's keep going. All right, here's our budget. If I fail at everything else, my #1 job is to get us budget items. I've got to do this. It's the money that you have already paid. And you've already paid your property taxes and other taxes, and we need to get it back. One thing that I was really benefited by is having a long time between election and when I took office. I had about 6 months of ramp-up time. And I got to spend meeting after meeting after meeting with Bill Gulliver, who taught me so much about our budget process and how to be successful as a city council person. And if you're not familiar, Bill Gulliver did a great job at taking care of us over and over again. He got money for the pier, he got money for the ferry, and most importantly to me personally, he got a bunch of money to rebuild our dune system after Hurricanes Irma and Matthew. And so what I learned from him is that we are one of 19. We get one vote in downtown Jacksonville. And with that one vote, you can get nothing done. You need at least 9 other people and the mayor to agree with you. And so I spend a lot of my personal time making relationships with my colleagues on the city council, supporting them in their efforts and their projects, and working with the administration, Mayor Curry and his team. Because without them, none of this is going to happen. And so here's what we got in this year's budget. $1.3 billion budget. We got improvement money for PENMAN Road. It's a study. I'll talk about it in a second, exactly what that means. We got $1.33 million a year for Jack's Beach for fire services. This was an extraordinary thing that we got that will last for at least 15 years. This is very important for the city of Jack's Beach. We got $1.5 million for new docks in Mayport Village. We'll talk about Mayport. That's actually just the first of 4 payments. So we get $6 million in docks in total for Mayport Village. And then we continue to guard the money for Jack's Beach Pier, which we'll talk about in a second. All right. Has anybody heard anything going on with JDA? No. Okay. So I'm going to say 2 things about JDA. The first one is I can't say very much about it. The reason why, and if you just go forward a slide, we are now under what's called a cone of silence. So the Office of General Counsel has told me and my 18 colleagues that I cannot come to you and tell you I'm in favor of selling JEA or there's no way I want to sell JEA. I can't tell you how I'll vote on this. The reason why is there's a bidding process going on right now, and if I were to voice my opinion, it might affect that, and I would be committing a crime. So I'm not going to do that. But I'll be as honest with you as I possibly can about what's going on. So going back a slide. We're not letting the road. So first of all, JEA does affect us. Raise your hand if you live in Atlantic Beach. All right, so you have JEA services, as you know, because you write a check every month. I don't think a lot of people in Neptune Beach and Jack's Beach know that Atlantic Beach has JEA, but they do.
Oh, I can assure you they know.
Candidly, I've been really honest about this process. I would love to see Atlantic Beach shifted into Beach's energy. And if ever I have the opportunity to make that happen, and the people of Atlantic Beach will support it, I'm in. We're making it happen. And maybe that's part of this process. I don't know. So essentially, JEA is under a bidding process where people who might want to buy it are essentially giving sealed bids to the city of Jacksonville. Technically, they're going to the board of JEA. We'll evaluate it. It's going to be a very long process. And if there's a bid that does like 12 different things, the most important of which is to clear $3 billion net for the city of Jacksonville, then it can go to the city council. The city council has to vote to put it on the ballot, and then 2/3 of the people of Jacksonville will have to vote yes on the sale. So that's kind of where we're at. If this all happens, which I don't know if it's going to happen, but if it were to all happen, it would probably be on the August ballot of 2020. That's my best guess. Again, I can't tell you my opinion about this, but I can tell you something that's very important about the way I think about government, which is I'm a conservative, which means I don't move unless I have a really, 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 really overwhelming good reason to move. That's my personal So I don't like big change without a really, really, really good reason. So that's the way I'm looking at this. Take of that and what you will. I know you might have more JEA questions, but I probably can't answer them. Okay, Penman Road. Raise your hand if you like Penman Road. Yeah. I mean, we all raise your hand if you use it. Yeah, so look, I'll be totally honest with you. Here's what happened. I knew I was taking office, and Sandy Golding got in my ear like 50 times, as Sandy Golding does. And you get a couple of asks, right? If you have the right friends on council and the administration's with you and you are doing everything you need to do to build relationships, you can start asking for stuff. And I looked around our district and I'd say, well, what would we ask for? I mean, you're paying this money, what would we get for it? And I looked around and I said, well, we have really bad traffic. And I'm tired of being stuck on A1A. And I would like to see better north-south access in the city of out of the beaches. And so we started looking at Penman Road, and Sandy Golding, all credit to her, she's already done so much work on this. But we took this to the administration and said, let's do this. Let's improve Penman Road. Before you can do anything that big, you have to get a study. And so in this year's budget, we have money for a study. And if we go on, I'll tell you kind of what it's going to look like. There's a lot of problems with Penman Road. It's ugly, right? Traffic doesn't move through it very well. And there's really, really bad pedestrian access. Raise your hand if you've ever actually walked on the sidewalks of Penman Road. Right, all of you are using it, very few people walking on those sidewalks. Why? Because they're terrible. They're this wide, they go up and down, they're broken. It's huge swales down and up. And so it's not a great experience. Keep going. We're going to first make it a little bit easier in the short term to cross. We're getting what's called RFBs, these big flashing things to get us across Penman Road. Keep going. I'll show you where they're going to go. I'm trying to go through this fast so we get to questions. My biggest problem with Penman Road about pedestrians is it's really blocking people who live west of it from getting to the rest of the beaches. There's all sorts of kids who have to go to school on the other side of that road. There's all sorts of people who want to get to the beaches or town center or anywhere else. Walking, taking bikes is really hard. And so here's some tentative potential locations for these RFBs to make it easier in the short term. And this is in this year's budget, and you'll see it happen in the first quarter of 2020, of this happening. Please tell me, if you think they should go somewhere else, let me know, because we're still in the process of deciding where they should go. But you'll notice these are our main thoroughfares of getting people from west of Penman all the way down to the east side of A1A. That's the goal. Does that make sense? All right, let's keep going. All right, so the next step will be to actually change Penman Road. This isn't Penman Road, it's nowhere near us, right? It's probably mountains somewhere. But the idea is to create much nicer sidewalks, to do what's called a complete streets analysis, that would have medians that are nicely decorated and planted, and it would be more of a boulevard. This is the probably most likely kind of setup that you would have, which is medians, narrower lanes, easier to cross, and very, very easy to access pedestrian and bike access. So my hope is that one day Penman Road is the one that I'll talk about that we're most proud of, that is the most beautiful and it's easiest to use. This is analysis. Sandy, how old is this?
Since 2007.
All right, so this is analysis that Jack's Beach did in 2007. I just put it up here because it's a good example of the kinds of stuff we can do. I promise you we will not put any roundabouts in without a lot of support. I have no idea how controversial driving around Circle would be, but after being on the Neptune Beach City Council, I learned that there is not a lot of appetite for round roads. So if we do it, it'll be because you all told us to do it. Before we go to parking at the beach boat ramp, I want to go back to JEA real fast, because you guys are a big cross-section of our community. I'm going to ask this in the only way I think I can. Can you raise your hand if there's simply no circumstance, no set of facts where you think you'd be comfortable selling JEA? Okay. And then raise your hand if there are some circumstances that you think the case can be made to. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. And that's what I'm hearing, by the way. That sounds about right. All right, let's keep going. Parking in the boat ramp. I was asked to bring this up. I have to admit, of all the 12 issues or so that I've been analyzing for the beaches and learning about, this was a new one for me. But it's an issue. There's insufficient parking, and it's on our agenda to do a deep dive. I don't have an answer for this yet because, frankly, the property we need, in order to improve this is owned by a private person, and that person really isn't excited to sell yet. So that's where we're at with this. Keep going. All right, the pier. This is the issue I hear about the most, without question. I think I get this question every single day, when is the pier going to be done? I love the question because it means people care about it. So I inherited the pier as an issue. It was destroyed in Hurricanes Irma and Matthew. Councilman Gulliver did a great job of rallying people and getting FEMA money. So here's where we are. It's a $9 million improvement project. 75% is coming from FEMA, 25% from Jacksonville, and then the other half from, splitting 25% between Jacksonville and Florida. There's more money in this budget for doing the pier, but essentially this group, Hal Jones, won the bid for $9.88 million. They should start in November doing this, and it should be done in 2 years. So November of 2021 is when you're going to see the pier finally done. My biggest job, to get back, my biggest job for the capital improvement stuff is to make sure this gets done and as fast as possible. I've heard it loud and clear. We want the pier back. We want to get all the way to the end. Have you all seen the new design of the pier? So it's not going to be just a straight out pier. It'll go out just like it is now, but then it goes up 8 feet as a ramp and then goes out again. So the goal is that this is supposed to be the 100-year pier that will, I know, trust me, I know. To stop this thing from being destroyed, it'll give us another 8 feet of clearance. It'll also give us a better view. While we're on the pier, I'll tell you, I think personally that the city of Jacksonville shouldn't be managing the pier anymore. I think we ought to turn management over to the city of Jacksonville Beach. I think they ought to get rid of that stupid fence that they've had up for years and essentially just let people use it. If you need to charge fishermen and women $1, fine, but open it up. If you're out there with your family, I think you should just be able to walk on the pier and enjoy it. And my understanding is that eventually the city of Jax Beach has no problem doing that. Corey, can you confirm? Yeah, he's not. He's on the record, all right. So I do think that we can do that, and I will say this, as you see construction of the pier going on, you're going to get upset because they're going to get on the dunes. And part of the contract here is that if they destroy the dunes around the pier in the construction process, they have to rebuild them and fix them. So as upset as we will get, and I'll talk to you about dunes right now, they have to fix them. All right, speaking of the dunes, I actually see it as part of my job to make sure that our dunes are protected. Without these dunes, our whole community will be underwater, and the next storm doesn't even have to be a big one. Jeremiah Blocker, where's he at? Commissioner Blocker, he represents the beaches starting from South Jax Beach in Ponte Vedra all the way down to the end of Milano. And we did a helicopter ride. You show the next one. Recently. Okay, it's okay. We essentially, I'm trying to help my colleague in St. Johns County because the dune system is doing pretty well here. Thank you, sir. Don't think it's not lost on me. The dune is not doing well in St. Johns County, and if you go look, there's basically no dune at all, and the beach is basically scraped away, and there's houses falling into the beach. And that's what will happen if we don't protect our dunes and invest in them. And so St. Johns County, sorry, is a good example of what not to do. And so we're trying to encourage them to come up with funding to go fix their dunes so that there isn't a broken dune down there and a nice dune for us. So, can we keep going? All right, Mayport. We've got our Mayport crew back there, Mayport partnership. This issue, if you know, was very important to, actually just go back one slide. This issue was very important to my predecessor, Bill Gulliver. He asked that we talk about it today, but I was going to talk about it anyways. But it's probably important just to talk about how we got into the trouble we're in today. Because Mayport Village is not what we want right now. I think it could be better. We all agree it could be better. Yeah. I mean, and so the issue is that Jacksport, if you don't know, bought up a huge chunk of Mayport and then did nothing with it. And basically it was this block for any activity for the longest time. And that's been fixed. Now Jacksport, that whole block of land is now owned by the city of Jacksonville. It's being managed by the Mayport Partnership, and they're going to take pieces of it and lease it to people who are going to put restaurants and other things to make this really nice. And the overall plan is to have a very walkable Mayport village that is thriving in a working waterfront. We'll keep going, we'll talk about the working waterfront portion of this. Over the next 6 years, $1.5 million will be used to build docks in Mayport Village. The first tranche of that money is in this budget. So $1.5 million for 5 minutes until when? How am I doing on time? Okay, I just want to make sure that we, okay, I want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions. So the first stock is going to go for O-Search, as it's stated right now. O-Search, if you don't know, we keep going, since we need to catch time. O-Search is that shark tagging organization. It's pretty awesome. They're super famous. They get billions of hits on their website. Their new headquarters and home port for their boat will be in Mayport, which is going to bring a lot of activity and interest. In addition, if we go one more, the floating classroom for JU will be down there. So you're going to see new activity. And in addition to that, you're going to see the new community center, which is pictures of it where they're going to be built. There's going to be improvements to the parking. All sorts of things are coming to Mayport. I think the only thing that's bugging me about this right now is we need to get the shrimp boats back. It's not Mayport Village unless it's a working, active waterfront. So there's a lot of work to be done to make that happen. Folks in the back have been working diligently on it. And in the interest of time, we'll just keep going. Okay, dredging. I had no idea I was going to learn anything about dredging when I became your councilman, but I've learned a lot about dredging. There are about 7 communities in our district that have waterfront and have access for boats. And each one of them has their own little mini district, and they all raise money. They tax themselves to do dredging about every 10 years. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the city of Jacksonville is intimately involved in this. I am working very hard for the Isle of Palms neighborhood. I think we probably have a meeting every week about this. But we think we have some solutions to help that community do their dredging. There's like 4 other communities that are going to do their dredging in the next year or 2. And so we are at the tip of the spear for dredging in intercoastal now. Don't worry, this is not new dredging. We're not going out to intercoastal digging deeper. This is stuff that already exists that's just silting up, and we're cleaning it so people can use their boats and protect their property values. Okay, JFRD. If you don't remember, the city of Jacks Beach voted to essentially combine their fire services with the city of Jacksonville Fire Services. This was a really controversial issue. There was a huge meeting. There was a lot of passion on both sides of this. I stayed out of it because, frankly, as the future city council person, I just wanted to do the best for Jacks Beach once a decision was made. So once they decided to go ahead and combine, my job was to get the best possible deal for the city of Jacks Beach. And I think we really hit this one out of the park. And I can't take credit. The former city manager of Jacks Beach negotiated this. But essentially, this is the magic number, $1.33 million. That's basically just cash coming from the city of Jacksonville to the city of Jacks Beach to help support their fire services that otherwise we'd be charged for. I don't want to talk about this too much because if we open this can of worms up, someone might try to take this back from us. But I'll just say right now, we are getting a very, very good deal. All right, Duval County Schools, I know many of you are probably fired up about this issue. Let me just do the quick overall how we got to where we are. If you're not familiar, the city of Jacksonville has for a long time had problems with the infrastructure related to our schools. The biggest driver of this is that for a large school district, we're one of the few in the country that have overcapacity, not undercapacity. So the issue here was segregation. We essentially had 2 systems, one for white kids and one for black kids, and there was too many schools once we integrated. And then we were left with extra seats in schools we didn't need. And the city of the Duval County School District has been losing about 1,000 students from its system since the 2013-2014 school year. So the school district is getting smaller. We already had extra capacity. And so there's an issue with the number of schools and numbers of seats. The other issue is that Duval County, for reasons I don't know, does not have impact fees. It's the only place I know of. So the other 2 counties represented here have impact fees. If you want to build a 1,000-person community, and you want to have 1,000 new houses, you charge the developer money for new roads and new schools. Makes sense because you're bringing new people and you're about to get a bunch of money. We don't have those. We have what's called concurrency. And concurrency says that if you have enough seats near this development to deal with the new kids that are coming in, you don't have to pay anything. And obviously, when we have extra seats and they're all over the community, concurrency is never going to get hit in. So you're never going to catch up and get enough money because when you need new schools, you use the pot that you already have. So that's how we got where we are. So when schools at the beaches were built, it probably hurt the schools in districts 4 and 5 inner city schools of Jacksonville because there wasn't money to maintain those schools and now they're gone. That's where we're at. Okay, this is what the half-cent sales tax would do. 1.3 billion or so in revenue generated over 15 years. Depends on what percentage of growth you look at, 2% or 4%. And then there's also your 1.5 mils you're already paying, so $1.6 billion for school maintenance and capital improvements. So you're going to get about $3 billion in revenue over 15 years to fix the schools. This is a timeline which I won't go through, but the most important button is that May 6, 2019, where the city of Jacksonville's attorney said that the city council has a role in this that's more than ministerial, that we have a substantive job to do to evaluate the plan, and then government did what government does so well, and it utterly did not work. You had 19 people who did not work well with each other, and then you had 7 members of the school board who split on their vote 3-3, it had to be broken, and it failed for 2019. We keep going. Here's my best guess. This will be on the ballot in 2020, but we need a broad-based plan in order to get it through. I think basically you want to have 19 and 7 and the mayor all pushing together. And in an ideal world, and what I would like to see more than anything is it gets on the ballot in 2020 and everybody's working together. Raising taxes in Jacksonville is always hard and has never worked unless the mayor, the city council, and all the other pieces are pushing in the same direction like the Jacksonville plan. So there's more work to be done on this. If you don't know what I've been doing, because I don't always talk about it, I had about 40 to 50 meetings and phone calls with members of our school board to try and bring the city council and the mayor and the school board to an agreement. I obviously didn't succeed, but I tried very, very hard because the gap between the two is this thin. We were so close. Unfortunately, I think politics got in the way and we didn't get there, but I think we will. All right, Jarbo Park. When I was a Neptune Beach City Councilman, I thought Jarbo Park needed a lot of improvements. I don't think anybody who goes to Jarbo Park is really thrilled about it. It needs to be improved. We didn't have the money to do a lot with Jarbo Park as a city of Neptune Beach because it's small and our budget is small. So I've already found $40,000 worth of money, and that is going to be coming for playground equipment. I will continue to work to help bring more money into Jarbo Park because it's the center of our beaches community. I'd like to see it work. All right, let's keep going. We can skip all the hurricane stuff. You guys know about hurricanes. We're the beaches. Keep going. Medical marijuana, just go back one more fast. This failed. Keep going. Northeast Florida Regional Council, I'm relatively confident it's going to go out of business. A law in Tallahassee is going to make these irrelevant and just basically just revoke all of them. So I think over the next year, Jackson will figure out how it's going to do the important work that this has been doing going forward. Go ahead. Lot J, I'm curious about this because in the beaches we don't get to enjoy anything downtown unless we make the trek. We go over the ditch. Everybody's worried about the Jaguars leaving because if our owner doesn't get what he wants, which is to build all this stuff, there's always a threat. And I think every owner, every city in America with 32 cities have this risk. But there's hundreds of millions of dollars they're asking for Lot J. So I'm just curious, do you support, raise your hand if you support money for Lot J? And then if you don't, absolutely not for Lot J. That's about what I thought. Okay. Anyways, it's coming. I care about dogs. Sandy will like this slide. I know my mom, who's right there, told me not to introduce her. Loves dogs also. As somebody who loves dogs, I'm going to work extraordinarily hard, harder than any city council person in the history of Jacksonville, to empty out our main shelter and to make sure that every dog that gets picked up finds a home. If I do nothing else, you will see the number of dogs in our shelters go down. I know how to do this. I have some expertise here. You'll see it. All right, keep going. Sexual assault prevention. Here at the beach, we have a lot of sexual assault. We have more at the beach than any other community in Duval County. I learned that a month ago. And when I learned that, I said we have to do something about it. So I've met with a lot of members of our community, and what we're going to do is try and get some training pulled together for all the bar staff and restaurant staff working at the beaches. Do a public awareness campaign, and then do everything we can to do a ramp up until spring break of next year. The goal here is that I think as a community we can do better on sexual assault prevention. I'm disgusted that our community has such a problem, and this is one where I can use my position to show some leadership and see if we can do some good on this issue. So if you're interested in being part of the solution here at the beaches, please let me know, because we're going to do it. The Fire Watch, This is a really unique thing. If you don't know, there's 22 veteran suicides every single day in America. The Department of Veterans Affairs came out with a report last week that says the number is going up, not down. So they've spent billions of dollars on veteran suicide prevention, and the problem is getting worse. And there's not a single city, county, or state in America that's ever lowered its veteran suicide rate. So I and Commissioner Gavin Rollins, Commissioner Jeremiah Blocker, and 2 other commissioners from other counties got together and decided to put together the Fire Watch, which would be the most unique, most innovative effort by a local community to lower its veteran suicide rate. We announced it 2 days ago. It's currently making its way through the different commissions and city councils. It should be passed by the Jacksonville City Council on October 22nd, and we'll do a big signing ceremony the first week of November. But anyways, long story short, please look out for the Fire Watch. There'll be more to be talked about with this. But we believe very strongly that we need to save our veterans' lives, and that veteran committing suicide in our community is just a tragedy that we can avoid. So why wouldn't we try? In addition to just doing the right thing, it's also a great opportunity to do better with veteran services generally. We've got Bill Spann here from the city's Veterans Office. Stand up, Bill. Come on, you're the big man. The 5-county area, as Bill will tell you, has 125,000 veterans. We have one of the largest veterans populations anywhere in America. And I frankly think our people are so good and so decent that they will rally to this effort, and we will lower our rate. And when we lower our local veteran suicide rate, I think every other community in America is going to look to us to see how they can do it themselves. It's not working in Washington, D.C., so we can show the way. Lots of Fire Watch. Okay, hey, this is the last one. We got there. So that's Mackenzie Connor. She's my assistant. She's doing an incredible job. She helps me in 1,000 different ways, and so if you ever can't get a hold of me, Mackenzie is always available. She's literally paid to take your calls. And we have, we are keeping our rules. As a Neptune Beach City Councilman, I made a rule that I wanted to make sure that I responded to every single constituent within 24 hours. We kept that rule the entire time I was on that council. We're doing the same thing in Jacksonville, so if you need me, you will get us. We're not hiding downtown. We are super available. If you've got an issue, let us know, and we'll get working on it. All right, I went as fast as I could.
You're great, thank you. Can we have a hand for Rory down there? And his assistant, Mackenzie. Okay, so we have about 18 minutes for Q&A.
And let me be clear, if people have questions or thoughts and they want to talk afterwards, I know what it's like not to get your question answered, or just maybe say your piece. I'll be out in front of the building until everybody is had their say or has their question answered, so I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, thank you, Rory.
Of course.
So we'll go ahead and start.
You project that if there's a vote on the JEA sale, that would be on the August 2020 election?
Yeah.
And you project that if there's a school referendum vote in 2020, it will be in November.
Yeah.
Why would you not have them vote in November?
State law requires that the school board one be in November, and the general election ballot started in 2020. It's just my best guess that if there's a sale that might come up, that they'll do it as fast as possible, but I don't know. I really don't.
But you would have a smaller turnout in August, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you always get a smaller turnout.
So wouldn't the community prefer full turnout?
Yeah, I'm fine with either one.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no opinion on it. Again, I'm not sure it's going to make it that far, but if it does make it that far, you all will decide, and it takes 2/3 of Jacksonville to make this happen, and you can decide whether or not that's likely or not. That's a good question. Come on, give me your school board question.
There you go.
Come on. This guy writes the best letters to the editor. Come on.
You previously mentioned your preference for or you floated the idea of these per pupil funding for charter schools based off this tax.
Yeah.
When DCPS isn't even using this philosophy, for instance, Seabreeze is getting $15 million more than Jacksonville Elementary, even though they have the same enrollment or very close enrollment. Why should we use this philosophy for charter schools?
Yeah, it's a good question. So how do you fund charter schools in Jacksonville is a big question. So let me just clarify 2 things that are important. Some people, when this thing came up in our district, were thrilled with the idea of getting as much money to traditional public schools and hated the idea of giving a single penny to charter schools. And there's other people who tell me charter schools are the only way to go, the traditional public schools are failing in the inner city. And then other people were like, I don't really want to tax. Like, I don't really care what you're going to do, I don't want to tax. So the question was, you know, how do you carve this up? And so I came out in front and said, listen, I think some money needs to go to charter schools, public charter schools, some piece of this. But not here at the beaches, and not in Mandarin, and not in the places where the public schools are doing great. Fletcher High School is awesome. My niece and nephew go to Neptune Beach Elementary. My brother-in-law's back there, wherever he is, Bob, there he is. His wife, my sister's on the PTA. We love the public schools here at the beaches. They are fine. They're doing great. But there are 22 failing schools in Jacksonville that are not great. And they have been failing year after year after year. And I don't think the parents of those kids should have to go to that same school and have no other options. So I think they ought to be able to send their kids either to another public school, to a magnet school, or to a public charter school. And I think they ought to be able to get transportation too. Because I don't think they should be locked into these 22 failing schools. That's my personal belief. But just to be clear, with a $3 billion plan, the amount of money that would go to public charter schools is about $150 million at best or worse, depending on your definition. And so I think the bigger plan, that's basically like the bird on the rhino. So let's worry about the rhino. Let's get the public schools fixed, and we can worry about this charter money thing on the side. Yes, sir.
Wait, I'm sorry. There's a gentleman here that has his name.
Oh, sure, yeah. You're in charge.
I'm in charge.
I'm a resident here in Atlantic Beach. My son graduated from Fletcher High School, and he also graduated from Gwinnett. I have attended many city council meetings downtown, and I know that you, Mr. Diamond, you support charter schools. And I just want to make a short statement and ask some questions. I won't take up too much time. But
Yes, please be brief.
Because charter schools don't have to accept students if they have behavioral issues. They don't have to show how much money or where the money goes that they spend. Some offer profits, and I want you to explain how profits are made off teaching our children. What happens to students when charter schools close their doors, and they have shut their doors? Our urban schools have never been funded properly. Teachers have been spending their own hard-earned money to buy supplies for us students. Across the country, teachers have gone out on strike just to get a living wage. School programs have been cut to the bone, and our children are paying the price for huge tax cuts to billionaires. So I want to remind you of what charter schools.
Okay, so I agree with maybe half of what was in that statement, but I'll say this. I don't support any for-profit charter schools getting any public money, period. I've also been really clear that you need to own the building if we're going to invest our dollars into it, or have some clawback if you close down. But we have to be guardians of the public dollar, and giving it to a for-profit charter is not something I would support. As far as these other issues, I think we can agree education is underfunded in Florida. I don't think there's any question about that. But we're also failing students in some of our neighborhoods, and I think those parents deserve other options besides being forced to send their kid to this failing school that's next door.
Gentleman back.
Councilman, is there any provision for that back to sunset? Are you aware of it?
Yeah, it'd be 15 years.
Any other questions? Yes.
We're standing in a facility where librarians and staff alike have to prepare public libraries, ensure that the beach is watching be here. The last few years, the libraries have had good legislative cycles. How important are the 21 branches and the library system as a whole to your legislative agenda?
So while I was Vice Chair of Rules, I did approve your appointment to our library board, so I know why you're asking this question. So he's a ringer for libraries. I'm also a big fan of libraries. My mom is a public school teacher. She took me to our public library in the county, I think every week, especially during the summer. I think libraries are magical places where a community can get together, where a kid can discover books for the first time, and frankly, where parents with not a lot of money can figure out a way to give education in those times when the kids aren't in school. I think we ought to juice up our libraries. I believe in community programming. I believe that community centers are a huge part of that. I think senior centers are important also, and we've somehow, for some reason, separated our senior centers from our libraries. And to me, they're all doing the same work together. That's just connecting people, and to make sure they have resources, and at some point, to make sure kids and the rest of us have books. I won't say there's someone in the room who I know uses this library more than anyone else. She's also my mother, she's also in Atlantic Beach, and I will get in a lot of trouble if I don't support the libraries. But yeah, no, I think we need to do more. This library in particular, you know, lots of libraries are important in various districts. I think this library is more important to this district than any other library in the system. And so you'll see me fighting very hard for it. And you'll also see me working to extend our hours, because I think it needs to be more consistent longer. And if you would fix that, I think that would be good. Judge Swanson.
I think this lady has
Yes.
a question.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I did have a question. Knowing that the half-cent sales tax, I hope will be on the ballot at some point in time. How do you spend a day in Duval County Public Schools? Do you plan on walking the public schools to see the states that they really are in? And what schools have you been to, or what schools do you have plans to go to, so that you can really look at what do the buildings look like? And I'm sitting here at this meeting reading my papers because time is, I just don't have enough. And so I really want to know that the people who are making those decisions know my pain. And know the pain of these students that I've taught. And I'm happy to see them still coming to these meetings, but I really want to know that you're...
Yeah, I'm trying. So I've probably been to 2 or 3 dozen Duval County public schools. So I served in the Jacksonville Journey for 5 years. I know before the Kids Hope Alliance, this was the kind of Mayor Payton's effort to get everybody to work on programs that would reduce violence in Jacksonville, in particular programs for kids. One that I took a big interest in was called ATOS, which is the alternative to after-school suspension. ATOS programs tend to be at the high schools where they're in middle schools where they're the most challenged and that would benefit the most from this. I saw all those schools. I went into the classroom and I walked every bit of it. Look, let me take off my city councilman hat for a second and just put on like resident hat. One of my problems with this plan is that I feel like Fletcher doesn't get what it deserves. I mean, we're rebuilding a bunch of stuff in a bunch of parts of our neighborhoods, but the band kids in Fletcher are in a pretty horrible spot. And I look at other parts of Fletcher that need a lot of work, and they're not going to get much out of this. They're getting some, but not enough, in my opinion. So that's my resident of the beaches kind of, I don't get to decide that as a city councilman, but it bothers me that our community isn't going to get a little bit more. Just to put it in perspective, districts 4 and 5 are getting half of the money, basically, and the rest is being sprinkled around the other districts. That may be entirely fair, given what's happened over the last 50 years, but I do have some problems with how much money is being spent in the district. And I've told our school board rep, Elizabeth Anderson, who I've met with maybe 6 times in the last couple of months working with us. She and I have a great working relationship. We disagree on policy sometimes, but we do it in a very professional working relationship. And candidly, I think that I would like to see her advocate for us to get more out of this thing over time.
Okay, I think you raise your hand, then you, and then Judge Flower. Go ahead.
Uh-oh, Judge Flower's on the dock.
I'm actually interested in the Firewatch program. I'm a veteran myself. I'm curious, are you going to make this or implement it into the transitioning veterans now, since they normally take that class 6 to 9 months out before coming? And then there's going to be some sort of requirement for people who are volunteering for the program to be trained in how to recognize when the level is beyond their control to prevent suicide.
Yeah, you're asking my favorite question, so thank you for that. If you look at veteran suicide as a span of time, and over here you've got the last 3 days before a veteran attempts suicide, and over here you've got a year before he or she may attempt. There's a lot of effort and time spent on these last 3 days, which makes entire sense, right? We've got to make sure that we do this right. And we're going to be reorganizing our efforts on these last 3 days, have better phone numbers, have local, immediate efforts to do that, so that you're not calling an 800 number getting someone in Minnesota or New York, New Jersey. You're having Jacksonville people answer the phone who are going to help you. So we're going to do that over 3 days. But going back over here, if you want to keep a veteran out of crisis, you have to realize that their life has all sorts of problems that could push them down this road. Financial problems, you can have personal, interpersonal problems, romantic problems, you name it. Mental health problems are off the charts, right? On average, K-9 Civil Warriors graduates are on 18 prescription drugs. So we need to do a better job of keeping our warriors out of this slide, and that would be a big part of it, working with our local bases on how to integrate back into Jacksonville society if we decide to stay here, 1, and 2, recognizing when someone who's been okay is starting to come down this road. And we'll be educating at least 3,000 people in Jacksonville on how to recognize that, and activating 10,000 veterans just to connect with each other so that there's someone out there that they can trust when things seem the darkest.
I don't know if you can speak to this given the bidding process, but is it wise, considering the water problems that are occurring downstate, to sell our water supply?
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't an answer. I'm not understanding the question. We can't actually sell our water. We can sell our pipes and some of the machinery around it. But I don't think I should answer the question to make sure I don't get this thing. But I can tell you, my dad used to tell me that the number one thing he looks for in any community is does it have a good water supply. Because once the water is wrong, there's nowhere to go.
Jim in the back.
Rory, first of all, there's nobody in this community that's more committed to veterans than you. And as a veteran, I'd like to thank you for what you do for all of us in terms of long-term safety and survivability of those that are challenged by their military experience. But I'd like to follow up with a question, really. The first gentleman asked you about timing of elections.
Yeah.
And when people stand for election and when things are on the ballot. As I understand it, city council elections typically have low voter turnout because it's not in sync with the national election. What is your view, if you have one, about moving the city council elections towards the November ballot to get a larger voter turnout, not only for the presidential election, but also for city council and other local issues?
Yeah, I mean, any of these good government reforms, you can see me behind. If you've got people participating more often, if politicians are being honest and being held accountable, if we've got rigorous laws that you can't get around, I'm always going to be behind that. Whatever it is, I'm in. Anytime we've got, look, there's no other community in Jacksonville that's going to have a turnout like this for a district election because the Beaches has a very active, focused voter turnout and voter and electorate. I can tell you that because I've knocked on almost every door in this town, and people have opinions here and they show up. Other districts aren't like that, and if we can encourage participation by shifting it, I'm in. That makes sense. Judge.
Yes.
Back-to-back judges.
I just want to
Trouble.
take one moment to, and I do have a question, but thank you for always supporting our world-class veterans work that we have here in the Fourth Circuit. But my question is, driving around here, which I do, you showed us the traffic improvements to PENMAN Road. Where do you see the future of traffic improvements on your watch out here at the beach?
So the biggest one is going to be is PENMAN Road. That's the one that we've got to look at most carefully. I think you will also see some improvements to A1A, which is a state road. I know that the state budget is going to hopefully have some improvements there. The other things that we have to remember, and this is a beaches specific issue, which is if we have a hurricane, but even just a bad storm, a third of our roads have a lot of water, and some of them are totally impassable. And so this isn't really a road construction issue, this is a drainage issue that we have to address. When I was on the Neptune Beach City Council, I talked about this all the time, that that First Street with a big storm and the wrong tide is now First River. And you can kayak down, and my house is right on First Street, and I look at it, it's 4 feet of water. That makes me nervous as a citizen. And so I would like to see prioritize our drainage issues to make sure that all roads are passable during storms. That's a Jax Beach, Atlantic Beach, Neptune Beach issue along with the state of Florida and the city of Jacksonville. So we'll always do our part, and we can't fund it all, but you'll see a lot of money coming out of us. In addition, Damian Cook is right there. He's in charge of all, I know he doesn't want me to call him out, he's in charge of all grants for the city of Jacksonville. He manages them, they apply for them, and one of the great things he does is help us get money for our transportation needs. And he's in the room, he's with your city council, and I promise you he's here because we work together so often on so many projects. He's the tip of the spear for getting money we wouldn't otherwise get, and so that's a relationship that's good for our community.
Okay, so we'll wrap it up with one last question from this gentleman in the front row.
More school board stuff, I know it. Come on, let's go.
So you spoke briefly on an impact fee, so is that something that you're actively pursuing? And then also, would it be anywhere near sufficient? Because I don't know that many developing neighborhoods that we have in the area.
I don't think impact fees would fix our problem today because we're basically built out except for the west side and the south part of Jacksonville. So that's not our solution. The half-cent sales tax is one way to do it. Another way to do it is have dedicated funding streams for things like the Kids Home Alliance, school construction, all those. But that would mean raising taxes. So if you're going to raise taxes in Jacksonville, you better have a broad group of people who are excited about it and everybody working in the same direction. So it can't just be one entity saying this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. That's hard to do. I don't think the answer is going to be yes for most voters in Jacksonville. That's my honest assessment. That's a bummer to end on.
George has been raising his hand, just didn't put it up high.
Well, you need to stand up, I can't see you back there.
George.
All right, one last question.
The boss is up.
Just a suggestion.
Yes, sir.
It seems to me that the city is really bent on trying to sell J, and if that, may not, as you said, but if that goes to vote of people, I'd suggest, just like when we did the infrastructure sales tax, that there needs to be an interlocal agreement between the 3 beach cities and the county on how that will impact the beaches. You're going to say, how does it impact the beaches? Well, it does in 2 ways. As the mayor plans on, if he sells JA, he plans on taking that money to pay off the infrastructure, all the debt for the infrastructure sales tax, and that tax. Well, that tax was supposed to end at 2030. It ends at 2020. That's going to cost the beach cities at least $20 million over the next 10 years. The second thing that we've talked about for 4 years is we've never settled with the city on the pension sales tax.
Right.
If the pension sales tax is supposed to kick in 2020 due to the sale of JEA, then there needs to be in that same agreement on the impact. You know, the city is getting a share of that money. When I say a share of that money, not directly but indirectly.
Yeah.
The city set it up with that law, cut out the beaches. So that's going to pay off all the unfunded liabilities for the county, but not the city. And there needs to be a way to do that. And the way to do that to me is, if they do sell it, an interlocal agreement that would satisfy the 3 beach cities on any impacts they have from the sale, and to help us move forward as a community.
Yeah, so there's not a single thing you said there where I can disagree. 100% agree. I'll say this. People keep asking me, why aren't you screaming from the city council about this, that, or the other? Why aren't you in the papers for saying this, this, and this? Why aren't you mad up there? It's frankly not my style to get really angry from the city council dais. Rather, I use my position to speak in person and say, here are the 3 things I need to get to this. If you want, my vote for this, if you want this, if you want that, and I do it interpersonally. But I've been absolutely 100% clear that anything big that happens in Jacksonville that impacts the beaches, I'm going to know until the beaches get their fair share, and maybe a little extra if I can do it, because why not? I honestly think that we get the short end of the stick over and over and over again. You all pay more taxes than anybody else in Duval County, and that doesn't seem right to me. I think we ought to get our fair share. So I'd love to chat with you on the side. I'll tell you what I actually said specifically. All right, well, I appreciate you all.
Okay, so let me end on 2 positive notes. At the request of our library director, I want to remind you of the noon break that's coming up this Friday, October 4th. It's with author Mike Tolbert and former Mayor Jake Godbold, and we're discussing his biography about Jake. So please, if you can, attend that. It's from noon to 1. And you also have in your chair this little slip of paper. It's something we've implemented this year. It's a survey, just very short. We want to make sure that the programs that we're bringing to you are relevant, that they are the quality, and we always love suggestions for future programs. So please take a few minutes to fill this out. And for those who are physically able, if you can take your chair and help us stack them, we'll be able to clear the room much quicker. And let's give a final applause for Roy Diamond.